Hello and welcome to that CyberLife. We are actually going to take a break from our Linux fundamentals course and we're going to go ahead and start talking about networking and how the internet works. So to start off, we're going to start off with a few definitions. We're going to learn what the IP address is, which is going to be our internet protocol address, and this is how other routers and other devices will identify your traffic across a network. And the router will hand this out to you in what's called a DHCP server. A DHCP server will hand you out an IP address whenever it starts to learn your IP address, or whenever it starts to see your device for the first time. And this also is done by seeing the MAC address. Now, a MAC address is a media access control address, and this address is the address that the manufacturer gives your device. This helps identify your IP address and start the whole process. Now, dynamic is when your IP address will change very often. So usually we have a lease that's about 8 days, and after those 8 days are up, we can either renew that lease or we could just dump the IP address altogether and get a whole new one. Static means that the IP address will remain the same the entire time. So oftentimes we want to create these IP addresses for things like servers, routers, switches, pretty much anything that we need to stay the same and never change. Now, a router, this will route all of our traffic for the internet through through our internet service provider and be able to grab any information and data we need from the internet into our device. A packet, this is the data that is sent in fragments through a network, and this will defragmentate on the other side of for the recipient, so that way it can make sure that none of the data is lost or that we are not dropping any packets. Now, a DNS server, this is called a domain name server, which is how the IP address of a web server is made into a web address, like google.com, which that IP address would be 8.8.8.8, but instead we type in google.com, so that DNS server will grab the IP address of google.com, which is 8.8.8, and then put that onto our computer. A subnet mask, this will identify the amount of devices a network can have. Now we're going to have a network portion, and we're also going to have a host portion, which I will go take a look at this right now. Now this is the IP address right here, 192.168.0.2, and on the left, that's going to be our network, which is highlighted in blue, and then on the right, that's our host or our device, which is .2, and we can have on this network, since we have a Class C address, which is the subnet mask of 255.255.255.0, which means that we can have 255 total addresses because all three of these octets right here are frozen and are used for the network portion only. Now this portion on the right here, is going to be our host or our device section, which these both go hand in hand right here. So as you can see, the network portion right here is also the network portion right here. So anytime you see 255, 255, 255, this all means network. And anytime you see a .0, or if it's anything under 255, that'll be the portion for the devices. You might see that on your router settings if you go through, like on Apple phones, if you go and click on the info button on your Wi-Fi network, you can see all this information right here and see exactly what I'm talking about. It'll give you this IP address and a subnet mask, and you can see exactly how it's set up. This will be the format for most networks at your home. Now, it may be different if you work in a different environment, but this is a home network setup. Alright, so this is how it works just starting off. So our computer is over here in this bottom right hand corner, and we're going to go reach out to our internet service provider, which will then forward our traffic to our router, and then we'll go through a mail server. And we're going to think about the internet as a whole as like we were driving on the road and we were a mail postal service delivery. company, and this right here is going to be our road, and we are delivering packets, but there's also a bunch of incoming and oncoming traffic as we're going through, and these packets are going to be sent through the network and get over to your computer that we are trying to reach. So it's going to go from our computer to the ISP or internet service provider, go up to a mail server, which let's say we were using Google Mail or Gmail, and then it will move all the way to your computer right here. Now a little bit more intermediate way of looking at it. Now these addresses right here are going to be your MAC addresses, and then these, like I said earlier, are going to be your IP addresses. Now our computer is going to be right here, and then this is the computer we are trying to communicate with. So we're going to start off by, this is going to be our packet, and we're going to start off sending it to our ISP, and then that is going to get forwarded over to our router, which in turn is going to go into this DNS server, and this is a mail server over at Gmail, and then this is going to get forwarded over to your computer right here, and then it will end up at your computer. And that is all for today. Thank you for watching.